It's time. No, sure. Okay, guess we're gonna.
Want to redo that?
Yeah, let's go.
No, keep that one in.
This podcast is up to a swimming start. Hello and welcome to Paul M. Bradley's Psychic Cafe, a show in which I gather with my friends to brew up fresh, piping hot ideas and then pour them directly into your ear holes. Just ignore the burnings and the lacerations. That's all part of the process. It's all good. Hello, my guest here today is a personal friend of mine, Mr. Samuel James Cybichowski. He is an animator, a voice actor, an artist, a filmmaker. He probably has some secrets that I even do not know. I haven't written this introduction. I haven't planned anything.
Hello, I'm Sam Cyb of Sam Cyb Stories. I am the coolest cat you ever did see. That is my introduction.
That is certified. It's official. We actually got it verified.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about art and creativity, imagination, all that jazz. I've got my nice strong cup of tea. Sam's got his refreshing glass of water.
I do, yes.
Unless it's vodka, and I can't tell, honestly. It looks the same.
You shall never know.
Alright. So, I think, it's probably best to say, how did it get started for you? What was it like, what was your first love in terms of, creative stuff? Where did it start?
I don't remember a lot of my childhood and my past, but I think it all started when I was 12-ish.
12?
We met at Saturday morning drama school.
That was
when I was. Yeah.
I was
I was
6?
9. Yeah. I was 9. You were 8. I think.
Yeah, it might have been actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good lord, how long does that make us friends then? Over a decade.
Oh yes, definitely.
It's hard to think that
Yeah.
actually. When you say decade, it just sounds a lot longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best not to think about it.
We're not that old. We're
Best not to think about the march toward the end.
Oh bloody hell! I'm feeling virile and strong and. Don't have
Good
to
for you.
You don't have to feel the creaking decay that lurks at the corners of reality at all points.
Yeah, not all the time at least.
So anyway, 12.
Yes, 12. Well, I mean, we obviously got into acting at much younger age, but I think 12 was when I started. I found a video editing and visual effects software. I can't remember what it was called at that time, but the company that made it eventually updated it into what became a program called HitFilm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I started self-teaching that kind of, and we started making back garden films.
Oh, less we say about that, the better.
Oh no, I think we should.
Let's
we
talk
should do
about
a
lot.
Yeah, we should do a DVD commentary.
Have you got the DVDs?
I do. Yes.
Sam,
I know you burned all your copies.
I still have Rampage of the Severed Hand, all of the films. I still have them.
Oh, good.
I'm actually thinking of printing the third one onto disc at some point when I get round to it. Because even though they are objectively terrible, they are at least amusing.
They are. I like to think that they're in some way they show off our evolution as creators a little bit.
I don't
of
think
our early days.
I don't think I started getting good until about 3 years ago. That was like that was the in terms of writing and acting, everything else was sort of stumbling attempts to like just poke at the barrier of
Yeah.
goodness. So I'm interested that it was video editing that started you off. I'm genuinely surprised. I thought it would be drawing.
Well, I guess I was drawing for a lot longer, and I was always told I was good at art for my age. But I think filmmaking was my first love in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. So what drew you to like storytelling? What is it that you what is it that you channel? Because this was what prompted this podcast really was like when hearing about like the lack of funding going to the arts and that in the wake of the COVID crisis. Shout out to all those listening past that crisis. Hey, weren't that a wild time?
Yeah.
Glad it's over
Yeah.
now, and we've only got the swarm of alien bees to deal with. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's strange that because it's such a strange thing when you think about it. The need to create art, the need to we've got all this stuff to keep us living, to keep the animal working, but why do we make stuff that isn't beyond all that?
Well, we're social creatures, man. It is through narrative is one of the best ways to control our environment of other sentient beings, because
Yeah.
it's a way of conveying information.
Yeah, it's like that book you recommended, The Science of Storytelling. Will
Yes.
Storr, yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's weird to think that it's entirely possible that it all started out from you go get that antelope, and now
Yeah.
we've got like I don't know, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Where does that? What's the arc there? Yeah, it's quite interesting actually, because so you got into filmmaking. What kind of films? What were like the early stuff for you? Like, was it what is the beginning of the story as I experience it with with the
Probably
videos you
with
made on your YouTube channel? Is that the
yeah.
start?
Yeah, I think I was very much inspired and influenced by I think at first, when I first started watching YouTube, I was influenced by vloggers like Wheezy Waiter.
Oh Jesus! Oh man!
Yeah, that's a blast from the past, isn't it?
Yeah, Christ! Do you know what?
Yeah.
I distinctly remember those old YouTube days, watching
Yeah.
those videos, and my parents just continually looking over my shoulder and commenting about how crap they were.
Yeah. But I think by the time I started filmmaking myself, I was influenced by visual effects YouTubers like Zach King and Freddie W, whose channel eventually became Rocket Jump and Corridor Digital, and loads of people who made short films that were sometimes funny, sometimes silly, sometimes very creepy, but the main emphasis was always on the visual effects they could pull off.
Mm.
And I wanted to learn how to do that. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And I think that that might give some context to why our first, our first back garden films were like Guns and Grapes, which
Oh
had
no! Oh
which had
no!
which had no story
There
other
was.
than just us getting out a bunch of guns and having a shootout with a bunch of sentient mutant grapes.
What? Where did that come from? Where did we start that? Like, okay, let's just forget everything else. Forget all the deep topics. Like, let's really dig into this. Where did that come from? How did you?
Well,
Mr. Sam, Mr. Sproul,
yes.
how did you? How did you come up? What was the main impetus for Guns and Grapes?
I've just explained where the inspirations came from, but I think the creative process there, from brainstorming an idea to a finished product, was basically just the name came first. Let's make a thing called Guns and Grapes. What's it going to be about? Grapes and guns?
No, do you know what? That can work sometimes.
Yeah.
You have a title.
Yeah, it can.
Like, you ever heard of Cat People?
No.
Oh, yeah, alright, so, it was back in the 30s, and it was like the Universal Monster craze was all the rage, and RKO wanted a bit of that. And so, they had this project where they hired a guy to come up with a load of sensational titles, like Cat People, I Walked with a Zombie, and like all these like random quotes like that.
I walked with a zombie. I'm
I-
sorry.
I Walked with a Zombie. That's you can look it up.
Is that just a film where someone like passes a zombie on the street?
No, no, that's Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
No, and they got all these sensationalist titles, and then they just they passed it to a bunch of screenwriters and filmmakers, and they're like, here you go, make a film called Cat People. And
Okay.
but other than that, they were given total creative freedom to do whatever the hell they wanted with it. And the film Cat People came from it was a guy called Val Lewton, and he created a film about a woman who turns into a panther whenever she's like in the throes of passion, and it became like a psychological thriller, and you never see the cat, you never see it, and so it's like it was actually it was actually like one of the first jump scares. It was like invented the jump scare in cinemas.
Oh, right.
There's a scene where a woman's being stalked by the Catwoman, right?
Yeah.
And she's sort of walking along, and she's like really looking over her shoulder, and then you hear this sort of, and then whoosh, but the whoosh is the sound of a bus coming in from the other side, and that was like that whole technique is called a Luton bus.
Okay.
So. But Guns and Grapes was not the was not an example of that.
Yeah. I think that sounds very interesting. Actually, it sounds like I mean, they definitely wouldn't do that nowadays. But I think to just start with, to just be given a random name and then have complete creative freedom over every other part of a storytelling project. That sounds like a cool creative exercise.
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting. I mean, I suppose you need something to start the basis of a story with. You need some kind of seed to grow, but it's very. How do you find with working with limitations? Like when you're writing a story, do you have like a what's your like process for that? Is it like
before I answer that question, I think if we have time, either now or at the end of the podcast, we should try an exercise where we just throw movie names at each other and try and come up with a story for it, because that just
Yeah,
sounds like fun.
sure. All right.
Yeah,
Cool. I'm down with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, um, I think I don't know really. I think um, it depends. I I can think of a lot of situations where uh, I've felt very held back by limitations, but I can also remember a few things I've created that were good because of the limitations, and
Mm.
I was proud of them because of the creative ways that I came up with to improvise around them.
Mm.
Um, the one that comes to mind right now is when do you remember when we used to be on that Doctor Who social media app,
Oh
the
Lord, yes.
Doctor Who Amino,
Those were the
the social
days.
media app for Doctor Who fans?
Yeah.
And there was a guy on there who went by the name the 16th Doctor.
I
Uh,
remember him. Yeah.
yes, and he saw that we had made a few blog posts about wanting to make our own Doctor Who fan made projects, and he asked us to write a few stories um, for his series, and uh, it was a very interesting set of limitations there, because the format for his series, I don't think I've quite seen anything like it. It was a um, it was a written story, um, but it was done through a series of blog posts where each paragraph or each event in the story was punctuated by animated GIFs.
Oh
Um,
damn. Yeah.
yeah, that he had that were basically just like cutscenes that he had recorded of himself acting out a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God. If I'd have thought of that, my story was way too ambitious.
yeah, um, yeah. You came up with something that was like it was like lots of stock footage gifs of like news stories and um, like a second-hand account of a Centauran
Yeah,
invasion.
that. Yeah, it was field report.
Yeah,
I've actually
the,
considered
the,
rewriting it for my own little project.
yeah,
Yeah, that. I mean, good lord, I would have to have somehow got that poor lad to animate two planets smashing into each other.
yeah, um, yeah. I on the other hand, created uh, one of one of my favorite one of the stories that I'm most proud of ever writing because of the circumstances surrounding it. I thought, okay, this guy, the only actor he has is himself. Uh, the only location he has is his own house and possibly the nearby park. Um, what story can I create that has as few characters as possible and only his own house as a location and uh, as few visual things going on as possible? So no overly complicated looking monsters or anything. And I came up with my story, the Guardian Demon. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I
which
remember
only
that.
had yeah, which only had the two characters, the Doctor and uh, an ordinary guy living in this house. Uh, and the Doctor was investigating a series of disappearances, and when he knocked on this guy's door, um, he walked in claiming he was with the police, and interviewed him and investigated the guy's house, and together that they worked out that the thing causing the disappearances was a shadowy creature, always hidden in the darkness, like an extra dimensional creature that pops out and drags people into its dimension, and its motivation for causing the disappearances was that it's kind of imprinted on this guy who lives in this house and wants to disappear anyone that it deems a threat to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. God, I wonder what. Did I? Yeah. That was really good. I remember reading that. I thought that was an excellent
Yeah.
concept.
It ended up being a two-parter.
I'm pretty bad at working with limitations myself. I don't like them. My first ever book attempt was literally called The History of the Universe, which gives you a
Oh yeah, I remember that.
that gives you a bit of a perspective.
Yeah, you. I remember you asked me to design a few gothic-looking Lovecraftian monsters for it that
was
were
so
sort of
good.
embodiments of universal forces that existed in your version of the universe.
Yeah, like archetypes and stuff. Man, it was some.
Yeah.
The problem was I was going with the mentality of I might never write another book again, so I'm going to put everything in this one.
Yeah.
Everything. And so there was just to get the book started, I had to create a theoretical version of reality in which it's constructed from consciousness, and there was archetypes and the universal war. The whole of creation was destroyed by the end of chapter 1, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just, and my ability to write it was outstripped by my ambition by several thousand times, and it got to the point where I was my parents were reading it and they were like, I have literally no idea what you're talking about here, Paul. This is like reading an actual history book.
For our listeners who probably don't know what we're talking about, who probably can't figure out what this book is about, to have an entire creation, the entire history of a creation detailed in it.
Yeah.
I believe it was like a biography of an alien historian.
Yeah.
From an advanced civilization that was detailing
about the entire history of the universe and all the civilizations that rose and fell. I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien would do lots of world building and really intricate stuff like that. Well, basically, mine was all world building. It was nothing but world building. It was all history. It was all backstory. A lot of, in my opinion, a lot of interesting ideas, but too many. And so I've decided to hack them up, and I've hacked that book up, and I'm just I'm gonna use this idea at some point and this other idea at another point, and I'm just gonna.
I think it's in theory it's an idea that could work if it was, like you say, more narrative than backstory. If the backstory served a purpose, like it wasn't just a historian detailing everything that had happened. It was a historian trying to solve modern day problems and searching the archives of history for specific things that could point to a solution.
Yeah, I think that was going to be the intent towards the end, but as I say, I mean, I found out also I'm a severe underwriter because I'm very impatient to get to the next bit. So
Yeah.
I am not a writer who is adept at limitations. I like to wander. Uh,
Yeah.
or another time. Good lord, why does it always come back to Doctor Who with us? It's the
Yeah.
Doctor Who Eccentric Adventurer fan series I tried to make.
Yeah.
Never got finished for very technical reasons. As in, you did the very selfish thing of going to uni to further your
No,
education
I
rather
thought it
than
was.
yeah, and
I thought
also
it was.
some of the actors went on
Yeah, I thought
holiday
it
too.
was
Yeah,
one of the actors who moved away that caused the end of it.
I think a lot of things caused the end of it.
Yeah.
Also,
Well, we almost got it finished. I think it was the only.
it was
It was only the last
scene really.
episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, but it was very my attitude towards limitations is I want to tell this big epic story. What's that? I don't have the money. I'm gonna make it work. I
Yeah.
can do this. It's fine. That's something I've really had to learn to reel
Yeah.
myself in, and try and
Yeah.
tell. That's why I got into prose,
Yeah.
and then I found out, really, actually, this is the thing. I really found that prose. I started out writing because I couldn't like tell the stories I wanted to tell visually, but then I found actually there's a lot more you can do in prose than just tell bigger stories.
Oh yeah.
There's
Because imagination's half the battle.
It's such a great medium, prose.
Yeah.
I find, especially I think the thing that really got me was telling the internal story.
Yeah.
Which I think loops back to the science of storytelling. It's about a book about the our understandings of neuroscience and the way that affects our storytelling. And there's so much like nuance you can do in that. And have you ever found this thing where where you can create characters and it's going to sound very cliched, but it's almost like they're alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's such a fascinating thing. I mean, what is that? What is that thing that we have somehow managed in our psychology using these just it's like you've conjured an entity into existence just by your mere imagination of it.
Yeah. Writers, man, we've all got imaginary friends.
Who is your imaginary friend?
He's a wizard.
He was a wizard.
Come
on, I want.
No,
I want real imaginary friends here, Sam.
Sorry, I thought you were doing a bit.
No, I'm asking for real. Who is your imaginary friend?
That's a good question. I think it's hard to think of any characters that I've poured that much personality into in my writing, because you and I have very opposite writing styles. You create long pieces of work, but you pack a lot into it because you, like you say, you're an underwriter. You don't sweat the specific details.
I add that in later.
Of each scene.
I have to, otherwise I get sick of myself.
Whereas I think of the one scene first and foremost, and I tend to write really short stories that just explore a couple of very intense scenes. And your stories tend to explore intellectual concepts, whereas mine just
kind of you to say.
Yeah, mine just attempt to get readers heart racing uh, as fast as mine is to be writing the scene and have my head in that space.
Oh God, that's always, yeah. When you get excited about a scene that you're in the process of writing, I'm like, that's such a strange thing, because it's like, what are you thinking? Are you wondering how it ends?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not. I've already planned out how it ends long ago. But
Yeah.
you can do that, can't you? You can get so into it. I think this is actually, I think where writing and acting
Yeah.
intersect.
I'll tell you, when I wrote the Curious Case of the Split Mind, uh, story about,
Oh man,
for
that's
our listeners, story about a person who clones themselves and then suddenly wakes up one day to find that they've kind of split into a hive mind between their two clones, um, and it's just the scene of them. Um, it's a first person scene of them figuring out that is what has happened. Um, I I felt actually dizzy writing that because
seriously.
I felt uh, like my mind was in two places at once.
Wow, wow, man, that's trippy.
Yeah,
That's really, like, you literally felt the disorientation that your character felt.
yeah,
Ah, oh, there's got to be some kind of like psychological sort of stuff, because that's like magic. That's like magic
yeah.
in the old sort of sense, the original feeling of the words. Like, the original name of magic was the arts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. It's art and magic are actually very much the same thing. Or like Alan Moore, the comic book writer, he says a lot of things like, to cast a spell is literally to spell.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was saying, like, for example, you to use language, human beings exist on like two levels, and there's the realm of like pure ideas, like pure consciousness, and then there's like, down here there's like, the land of skin and earth and
Yeah,
chairs
the
and all that.
material
The
realm.
material realm, yeah. And human beings exist sort of somewhere between the two. We sort of sit
Yeah,
and we interact in what he calls idea space, like cyberspace, but
yeah,
it's like idea space. We interact with that every day, just to do simple stuff like, get coffee or something like that. But
yeah,
there's like, artists can plug into sort of grander stuff and draw it down from idea space into like real space, or any craft, for instance. I mean, there's the idea of chair, and then there's chairs themselves, and the idea of chair is almost more important than the chairs themselves.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm fascinated by that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm really into that, and it's like, by using language you can actually induce changes in, like, in mood and thoughts. Because, like, what happens, what is it when you watch a film and you cry? What is going on there? Because all you're looking at is an arrangement of light and sound, and yet it's evoking so much emotion and so much, you know so much deep thought when it really works.
yeah,
And I mean, my God, if, like, you don't even need laser beams coming out of a stick, that's magic.
yeah,
That is magic in and of itself. You don't even actually really need to believe in any of the more abstract ideas. Just on a purely physical level, you're looking at light and shadow, and you're feeling the trauma of your childhood. That's incredible. Or,
yeah,
as you say, you're literally, in writing a story about a split mind, you have literally experienced that same disorientation. And I must say, when I was reading that story, as I tried to picture that in my head, especially when you did the audio reading of it, with that sort of, when you really dragged out and slowed sort of simple music to this sort of strange sort of sound, I felt that too. I felt that strange feeling of sort of split, and I wonder if you were good enough at it, if someone was really adept and like really knew, could they literally induce some psychedelic experience through pure words? I mean, probably not, but
I'd say it's probably possible. I mean, going back to the book I recommended, the Science of Storytelling. You mentioned it earlier. That basically explains that the science, the neuroscience behind it, is that when we're looking at words on a page, when we're looking at images on a TV, we're not actually looking at those things. We are looking at something that our brain is conjuring up. And it's so, if everything is a simulation of that our brain is conjuring up, it's very easy to model in stuff that looks real to us. That's what suspension of disbelief is, and that's what even when you're not focusing on it, that's what mistaking something for something else is. That's what daydreaming is.
Yeah.
It's what dreaming in your sleep is.
Yeah, I find that actually. I found when you were, the analogy that he used was when you're sort of walking late at night and you see an old man, and then you look back and you find it's a tree, and you're like, oh, I thought it was an old man. You say, no, it was an old man. You saw an old man, but then your mind corrected the hallucination. And I find
to be clear, your mind did in fact conjure an image of an old man in place of that tree.
I'm not saying,
and that's why you saw that old man. It wasn't.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's a little sneaky old man following you at a distance.
Follows you home every night.
Wearing like branches, or like wearing like leaves, so that at any moment he can just freeze into a tree position. I mean, it might be, and you will never know.
It probably is.
Yeah. Every tree is actually secretly an old man in disguise.
Yeah.
And you will never know, and that's the point, really. But yeah, I mean, that's fascinating, because it's like, you're not reading, when you read a book, you're not seeing the words on the page, you're seeing, like, because you see in your mind, and you don't even really register that that's happening, but it's I mean, it's an illusion spell, if you will. It's a powerful thing, and what I find most fascinating is that something like that can bury itself deep in your mind and create, can help you process things that you wouldn't be able to process through normal life. Like, I watched The Breakfast Club, right? And I watched it. I was not in a good mood when I watched it. I was really feeling, this was before I started doing meditation. So my mind was all a mess. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe this film will cheer me up or something, maybe something like that. And as I watched it, there was sort of this moment when I was thinking, holy shit, I'm really feeling this. And there was just something in it that really just plugged into me. And it was, I think, I wish I'd seen that movie when I was in secondary school, because that was really the sort of film I needed to see.
Okay.
Something. It was just something about the way that, because at the end there was like, someone who felt rather sort of a bit socially. I was going to say socially distant, but that's taken on a different meaning. Yeah, a bit socially isolated, particularly towards the latter half of my secondary school days. That it collected like dust and dirt and pollution on sort of the surface of the mirror of my mind, if you will, and it was just like all of a sudden that had just taken a thumb and just wiped it down the mirror, and it was like, oh yes, that's what I needed to see. I needed to see a bunch of people from different groups who the society of the school said should hate each other, realize they have more in common than they thought, and become friends, and Molly Ringwald dancing to 80s tunes. This is exactly what I needed to see. And it was just like, and by the end I was like, it was like I'd gone through a sort of, week of therapy in sort of an hour and a half. And I've found sort of stuff like that can happen so much in films, really, not just films, but in books, in, another example, Yes Man by Danny Wallace was another one of mine, where I read it and it's made me confront, this sort of, man, I don't like the way I'm living. I want to live more spontaneously. I want to live more in the moment. And you get, it's like little downloads, if you will, little pings, messages just dropping in at convenient moments to just shape your mind. And please forgive me if I'm going into sort of hippie territory here, but it's just so I'm fascinated by art's power to just plug right into the, bypass all the sort of common chatter of, oh yeah, I need to go and get the shopping, and I've got to fill out the tax forms, and oh god, maybe I could just go have some food, and maybe if I have another chocolate biscuit, then I'll be alright. And it could just shoot right past that and plug straight into the emotional core.
Yeah. Do you think that today's society's acceptance of like geek culture and pop culture and like stuff that is sort of more divorced from reality, the acceptance of it that is much more so than it was a couple of decades ago, I think that's quite a lot of that is probably to do with the internet, the fact that we're more connected, and people who are interested in things have more power to voice their opinions and connect with like-minded people. But do you think it's also because society at large is starting to realize that we retain stories better than we retain information?
Do we actually?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I've heard it said that Homo sapien, meaning wise man, yes, we are not Homo sapiens. We are more like Homo narrators, meaning storyteller.
Nice.
Storyteller man.
Storyteller man.
No, that sounds like a knockoff a superhero.
I, Storyteller Man, will tell you the story of how those children burned to death in a fire. Well, I haven't done it yet.
It sounds like...
I haven't done it yet.
It sounds like the mascot for a library.
You could go and save them. No, that's not my power. So the children were on fire, and they screamed and screamed.
It's actually quite a more of a horror story character than a in a children's cartoon character, because his power is that he reads stories and then the events happen in real life.
I mean, I was thinking that he just reads exactly what's happening while it's happening.
Oh no, that's good too. He just stands outside the burning orphanage.
Yes! And you see the flames licked higher, and absolutely no one could save them. Well, you could. No, the books would burn. So he came across... Oh, man, I tell you, if I could have any superpower, it would be the ability to know exactly the right words to say.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, because you think about it, you could do anything. Like, you could do anything with that power. Technically speaking, you can't fly. But you know what? I watched a video about how you wouldn't want flying powers. Because the rate you'd have to go, the wind resistance against your face would shred your skin. So, I don't think you'd want...
And the true science of the power of invisibility,
Oh, God, yeah.
haven't you heard? It means you would go blind as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because
sight works on light going through your eyes.
You wouldn't. No, I think most superpowers you actually wouldn't want in real life, but the power to know the exact right words to say, you could
go into a shop and tell the guy at the till the date of his death to give him the existential crisis to give you whatever you want.
Jesus Christ, man! I was gonna say you could create world peace using that.
That too.
No, that too. First things first.
That's plan C.
What's plan B? What's the second thing you're gonna do with that power? I've forgotten where we were going with this.
I think something I meant to mention back when you were talking about the fact that humans exist in this plane of existence between the material realm and the idea realm. It reminds me of a few stories my dad has told me. For those listening, he is a life coach. He just does like conversational therapy with people, talking about something called the Three Principles. It's a very cool thing. I recommend looking into it. And I think he is actually doing a webinar or something in a week or two, talking about the pretty much what we're talking about, the nature of creativity.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. But it reminds me of something he told me once, that he's heard a lot of interviews of musicians and writers he likes. A lot of accounts of people saying that when they've created truly creative and iconic things that resonate with people, there's a lot of accounts of them saying that they didn't write it, they didn't create it, they just channeled something from an idea place. An abstract place that ideas seem to come from when they're in a state of mind that allows for that.
You've got to get out your own way.
Yeah,
you've got to get past all that.
They get into some sort of trance, almost, that allows them to be their best creative selves.
Oh yeah. I find that, when I'm writing my book, The Steel Chrysalis, I find that I'm on draft 3 at the moment, and it works best when I've written like I just type, and I'm like, oh, how many words has that been? Oh, 800. Bloody hell, that was fast. And it's just you don't even realize it. You don't even feel the time go.
Yeah.
And actually, I was listening to just yesterday David Lynch talking about Transcendental Meditation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's some interesting stuff because that's a big part of his creative process, where it's the transcendental meditation he describes is like, so you've got, on the physical realm, you've got like, you got your particles, right? You got your stuff, and then you go deep enough, you've got atoms. Then you go deep enough, you've got electrons. Then you go deeper, then you got like quarks, and you got all this sort of weird underbelly where everything doesn't make sense. And the same thing applies to the mind, that you've got the surface level sort of wobbling, sort of like he compares it to like an ocean. So you've got like the rolling and the pitching of the waves and the ripples and all that stuff. And the deeper down you go, the more you find that everything is just still and quiet. And he said that is the source of, creativity, positivity, intelligence, wisdom, and you just keep going deeper and you will tap into this, and as a result, the light will expand, and that sort of darkness will shrink from your life, and that you do that enough, you will find these sort of things, these intuitions coming to you with in regards to like art. I think really a lot of I couldn't tell you where half my ideas come from. I couldn't tell you. Like, I think the best short story I ever wrote so far is called In Search of Lost Endings. It's about a world where people, at the most sort of climactic, important, life-affirming moment of their life, they suddenly poof out of existence, leaving a the end credit sort of floating on the air. And I think that came to me in a dream. That was just like that just popped into my head. And again, with every idea I think that I've ever come up with that's worth a damn, it's been, just some another story I wrote, The Mouth, which is about a guy who develops like a second mouth on the back of his head that starts sort of spewing toxic self-doubt profanity to him. I remember distinctly lying in bed. That was like, I'd listened to like old legends about second mouths and stuff like that. The legend of Edward Mordrake, who's like a guy who had like a Siamese twin on the back of his head that apparently spoke to him in the night. And I thought, there's a metaphor in there somewhere. I think there's something in there. And I went to bed, and I was literally in bed, and all of a sudden, it was like the story sprung out and was like, I'm ready now. Go on. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah, I'm ready. You're going to write me tomorrow. But I was going to do something else. No, you're not. No, you're going to write me now.
Yeah.
And I found that, that's the consistent thread, that it's some, that you're a vessel for these ideas. And you can see the practical edge of that, because if you try and write a story that delivers like a message or something, I'm not saying that messages in stories are bad. I'm a big believer in stories with a message, but you can't really start with the message and then work backwards, because otherwise you create something that's very stale. Obviously, I mean, for example, people like George Orwell, 1984, fantastic book, and he wrote that with a clear and direct message. But I think at the same time, there has to be an emotional core to it. It has to be something that starts in the gut first, has maybe a literal translation in the head, and then they start talking. But you can't just work from the head. because all that the head produces is filler and junk.
Yeah.
I can tell when I'm writing from the head, because you just find it. You're just typing there, and you just feel like, yeah, how else am I going to construct this sentence? Oh well, and then they went to the thing, and they went here. And it's just that moment where it's just,
What's your motivation? Where's the heart in this?
Yeah, I mean that's it. You've got to feel it.
Yeah.
It's got to be something. When I was writing In Search of Lost Endings, the first draft, and I was like, I was at the beginning when he finds, when the main character Will, he's with his girlfriend, and they're getting ready for the final climactic kiss, which they think will cause them both to wink out of existence. She disappears and he doesn't, and he's left sort of horrifically disoriented. First draft, I was writing from the head. I could just tell, and I was like, and I was like constructing these metaphors, but I was because they were from the head, they made too much sense, if you know what I mean. It's got to be. And I was just thinking, oh, this is just a bit, and then I'm describing, why do I need to say where, he got up and went into the car? Why do I need to say he went into the car? Can't I just say he drove off? Can't I just, and it was just, you end up fighting with yourself, in a way. It's quite Taoist. It's quite, you've got to just let it flow.
Yeah. You don't really need to say he got into the car unless the way that he got into the car means something.
Well, like he sort of dive bombed into it.
Yeah. Or he gave like a knowing look over his shoulder before he got in.
Gave a little wink. Gave a little nod.
Yeah. Did a little flirt. Did a little dance. Make a little love. Get down tonight.
Now it just sounds like you're saying the lyrics to like a song from the 70s.
I am, yes.
Do a little boogie, gonna get down tonight. Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how are we doing for time?
It's been an hour.
It's been an hour.
Yes.
Didn't feel it. It was that was right from the heart.
Yeah.
How's about for the last maybe half hour we try that experiment? We try that
sure.
write a story experiment, because I'm quite interested in that. I'll open up Microsoft Word. I've got my computer here right now. All right. So what's the title? What kind of title should we?
Okay.
Shall I? No, hang on a minute. I've got an idea. I'll get a random word generator.
Yes, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe as a hard level last one, we can do guns and grapes and make a real story out of it.
All right. Yeah, sure. I think this is going to be very interesting. Should we all right, let's do 2 words to start with. And just generate some random words. Truth clothes.
Truth clothes?
Truth clothes.
Clothes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We must make a story called Truth Clothes.
Okay, so the story of Truth Clothes, how long does this need to be?
I don't know. I mean, I'm literally I have no idea where I'm going with this. So, I mean, are we going to write it? Are we going to... Well, I mean, not literally write it, but...
yeah.
Alright, so Truth
I think
Clothes.
just create a synopsis first.
Yeah, alright. We'll just wing it. We'll just wing it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, Truth Clothes.
Do it in post.
Now, this is raw. This is real. Not a single second of this beautiful exchange will go... are you just twiddling your... He's just
My
twiddling,
headphones.
he's just twiddling his headphone cable.
Yeah.
Such disrespect. He's like a 16-year-old girl from the 50s curling the phone receiver around her finger as she talks to a boy.
Maybe I am. You don't know.
I mean, well, yeah, true.
Truth clothes.
Truth clothes. Okay, truth clothes. So we got clothes, right? Now, I'm thinking it's this guy. His name is Alex. Alex
Baldwin.
Alex Baldwin. Alex Baldwin. So he's going to a charity shop, right?
Yep.
He's heading over, and he picks up some clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and he thinks, "Damn, man, those are some really cool clothes, man. I want to buy me those clothes, man." That's his thing. He says "man" at the end of every set. That's his character quirk. So
Nice.
So he goes to buy it, but the guy at the till is a really old guy with a big beard, and a little pipe, a little cob pipe, and
and Alex goes, "Yo, man, can I buy these clothes?" And the old man goes, "In 7 days." In 7 days, you will be visited by a ghost, you say.
Alright, and so Alex is like, "Yo, man, that's pretty trippy, man. But okay, man." So he buys the clothes.
Wait, hold on. So the reason the old man is saying this,
It's
we have to
unrelated.
we have to
It's
tie it back to
unrelated.
the
He's just a
clothes
crazy
somehow.
person.
We have to tie it back to the clothes somehow. The reason the old man is saying this is because the clothes have truth-telling powers. I mean, that's the obvious direction to go with truth clothes, isn't it?
I would say, which is exactly why we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's so actually, see, the clothes, they used to belong to Richard Nixon. They were preserved, and so he in 7 days you'll be visited by a ghost. So he buys the clothes, and he's wearing them. 7 days later, the ghost of Richard Nixon comes up. He's like, "What are you doing with my clothes?" I do the head shake thing, but I've got headphones on. Says, "What are you doing with my clothes?" And
Fantastic impression.
Yeah, I know. So he says, "Hey man, I bought these clothes from a
He
shop."
just talks to the ghost of Richard Nixon like he talks to everyone else.
Yeah. But you see, the truth that is being revealed through these clothes is actually the transcendental truth of what happens after you die. And
okay.
yeah, so Richard Nixon takes him on a magical psychedelic journey through the halls of the spirit realm, all of which he's set up bugs and listening devices because he doesn't want the other ghosts spying on him.
No one would have expected this from a movie with the title Truth Clothes.
I mean, who expects anything from a title like Truth Clothes?
Good point.
So they're traveling through this realm, and then but the thing is, though, that the real truth that is being revealed here, there's actually another layer of truth, and the truth is that Alex Baldwin is Richard Nixon.
Okay. Elaborate.
No, I'm leaving you to do that. It's your turn.
Oh. Oh dear.
I've just dropped this nuclear bomb on you. You figure it out.
What a checkmate you have you have made. So the reason Alex Baldwin is secretly Richard Nixon, even though, okay, so it's gonna be some Memento type stuff, or some Bridge to Terabithia stuff where none of this is real.
Or some Bridge to Memento to Terabithia.
Yeah, that works. I've never actually seen Memento.
Neither have I.
Yeah. My other idea for what to do with Truth Clothes is that it could be a detective story where the detectives like he's got like a Sherlockian wit and deductive skill, but only in regards to people's clothes. He can only deduce evidence that appears on people's clothes.
So if he just visits a nudist camp, he's screwed.
Yes. And that's the plot of the film, you see. I think we've done it. That's what Truth Clothes is.
Damn it! And then the ghost of... so how does the ghost of Richard Nixon fit into this?
He is the head of the nudist camp. The nudist colony.
Yeah, and they're like, come visit our newest member, Alex Baldwin, and the detective goes up, and there's just Richard Nixon there, and he's like, what are you talking about? That's Richard Nixon. And they're like, who the hell's Richard Nixon? He's like, but that's Richard Nixon. You gotta believe me. And he's being dragged off, kicking and screaming. He's like, it's Richard Nixon. You gotta believe me. I would love to see a film where the script is sort of interrupted by the remnants of a failed script that came before. Oh god, I watched a film called The Forbidden Room, actually.
Okay.
It's a filmmaker called Guy Madden.
Yeah.
And his thing is all about like silent movies, but he has like this weird. It's like he creates like silent movies in like the style of like the silent movies, except they talk. So like it's like the late sort of 20s, early 30s kind of feel, and one of the things he did was he created a film, the Forbidden Room, which was basically all of these sort of lost films, all the films that have been destroyed over the years. He recreated like bits of them.
You sent me a video essay about that.
Yeah, and
recently.
He recreated these scenes from these old silent movies, and they sort of bleed in and out of each other. And one character goes to sleep, and then he dreams of a thing, and then it dreams it, and it's like it's constantly sort of expanding and contracting, and that. So I think that's Truth Clothes, because the even realer truth. The even realer truth is that this is all being made up on the fly, and that the universe is chaos. That's
It's very avant-garde.
It's very avant-garde. It's yeah. All right.
Yeah, so our next word.
Our next word. Okay.
Our next title.
Retreat provision. Nah, that's shit.
Retreat provision.
Corruption. Soup corruption.
Soup corruption.
Soup corruption. I'm thinking an action movie.
Yeah. Very.
I'm thinking Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, this is the Die Hard of soup factories.
So all right. So you got a private investigator, right? But he's also really buff. He's like Sylvester Stallone, really jacked. Sort of 80s Stallone.
Yeah.
But he's like in a sort of LA noir
The movie has to start with an encounter between him and the chief of police, where he's been reprimanded for being a rogue cop.
Yeah,
who doesn't play by your dad's rules.
Yeah, that's it. And he's like, you don't play by your dad's rules. He's like, man, my dad ain't here anymore. He's like, don't you talk that way about your dad. He was a fine man. So it cuts from that to the soup factory. And there's this guy. You've got that scene. It's in like a dark room with a single light, and you've got the guy, this sort of low-ranking employee in a little shirt and tie, and he's flipping through these papers, and he's like sort of, nervously drinking coffee, and he's like, my God, no! And he sort of looks at these sort of big files marked top secret, and he's like, I can't believe it. And he runs out of his office and he confronts the manager. He's like, I know what you've been doing. I know what you've been covering up. I know what the manager, by the way.
Hold on. The manager, by the way, is who is also the villain of the movie. She is a woman with golden blonde hair. Her name is some reference to Goldilocks. And she's always hard on her employees for the soup being too hot, too cold, or. Yeah. All right. Just wanted to contribute that little nugget of gold.
Yeah, so he goes up to his boss. He's like, I know what you've been doing. I know what you've been covering up. It's disgusting. I can't believe you're doing this. Well, we're going to report you straight to the highest authorities in the soup-based industry. And she's like, she leans back a little. Puts out a cigarette.
And then she uses soup to kill him.
Yes! She throws him into a big vat of soup. And he's like, well, what the hell's that?
No, she just leans back in her seat, and then it cuts to him falling into a vat of soup.
And then he's lying there, and he's floating on top of the soup. And he's like, oh, what the hell is that all about? And she goes, oh, it's too cold. Let me adjust that. And she turns up the heat, and it starts bubbling, and he's like, ah! And he boils to death in the vat of soup.
This is fantastic.
This is great. I love this. So Stallone, he's put on the case. He's put on the case of investigating the death of low-ranking soup man.
Yes.
And
where was the body found?
I think it was probably it's just thrown in a dumpster. Just thrown in the bin.
Okay.
Just thrown in the bin.
It wasn't like set up to frame like or like create a fictitious serial killer with a soup-themed MO.
No, I think really, she boiled him up in the soup.
Yeah.
And then she was like, I can pass this off as an industrial accident. It's easy. Just remove the guardrails. Pretend he fell in. Yeah, so he's doing all the interviews, and he goes to. You've got that scene where he goes to the wife and kids, and he knocks on the door.
This is Stallone now, is it?
Yeah, the wife answers, and he's like, "My husband, what happened to him?" And he just looks, and he just goes, "I'm sorry, your husband was the cream of the crop." But
this is where he delivers a one-liner, like an action hero one-liner, and the wife just goes, "Wow, that's really inappropriate." My husband just died, sir.
Yeah, well, my boss told me I don't play by my dad's rules. And my dad said, always be respectable to the families of murder victims, so I thought I'd be edgy. And
what's the one-liner he used?
It's the cream. I was trying to think that is the cream of the crop, but he's fucking dead. Just runs out of words.
Yeah.
Alright, so we'll skip forward a little bit. He's doing the investigation, and he finds out. He's like reading, he's like going over the files. Oh, and there's like a voice message left over by the murder victim. And he's like, I'm recording this. I know this may be the last thing I ever say before I confront my boss. We've got to tell you that secretly the Soup Company Limited has been, I don't know, what's the secret? What's the big secret?
They have been making cold soup on purpose.
Making cold soup on all soup is cold when it's delivered to you. You're supposed to heat it up.
Hold on.
Wait.
Hold the phone and hand the phone to me.
No. Even better.
Their evil scheme is to create soup that stays cold, no matter how much you heat it up.
Yeah. They're creating soup, and it's gonna stay cold no matter what they do. Millions of people around the world are gonna be getting cold soup no matter what. Oh God, she's insane.
And then they're going to be like, but what do I do with this cold soup? I'd better send a complaint. This is really inconvenient. I can't eat soup now.
And then she's like,
That definitely wasn't the boss's intention. I'm sure it was more evil in her head. Like people were just going to be sad eating cold soup.
And she's like, he's like, my God, she's insane. And then all of a sudden you do that thing where you pan over and you see that she's holding a gun to his back. And she's like,
oh yeah,
no. And then she reveals her tragic backstory. And she's like, years ago, I had a husband. He looked like you, I think, but he ate some soup, and it was hot. It was real hot. It was so hot that it burned its way through his throat, and he died. I swore to myself that day that no one else would eat hot soup that's too hot, except for that one employee who I boiled earlier. But that was like autistic, and I don't know why this voice is turning into sort of Christopher Walken. she's
oh like, no!
She's turning into Christopher Walken, and she goes, "But he had to."
Yes, she was secretly Christopher Walken the entire time.
That's the real truth for the truth goes.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's like, so now everyone will be getting cold soup, no matter what. And then he goes, "You're insane. Couldn't you just serve gazpacho soup? I mean, that's supposed to be cold." And then she's like, "No." And then there's an epic gun battle, and he's diving around, and he's got two guns. And then she's like, and then like the police SWAT teams show up, and they're like, everyone on the ground.
Bang,
bang, bang. And everyone's, and there's bullets ricocheting everywhere, and then all of a sudden, like she's like, I'm gonna get away from this place, and there's all this sort of shooting and shooting, and then one of the SWAT team members, or maybe like the plucky young assistant to Sylvester Stallone, like maybe he gets partnered up with a kid like halfway through. Like he's got a kid. Yeah, he's got like that guy, the mediocre employee. His kid partners up with him, so it's like a buddy cop movie, except one of them's 8, and he's like
the 8-year-old knows kung fu.
yeah, he knows kung fu. We're just throwing him in. So he's running. He's like dashing around. He's like, "Hey, stay! Come, I'm over here! I'm over here! You get down, kid!
It's not safe for you, kid.
Stay back! And then he's like, I know what to do, and then he just like she's getting away, and there's like nothing that anyone can do, and the SWAT team are like, no, we're helpless. What are we gonna do? And then the kid's like, I know, and then he just roundhouse kicks a massive wheel, which sends this big vat of soup just tipping over. And it just, and all of a sudden it's like a tidal wave, but it's just directed straight at her. And,
why a wheel?
I was going to say lever, but for some reason wheel came out my mouth. So I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no! And she's like reaching out for the door. And then the second she grabs it, this massive flood of soup comes in. And drowns her, and that's the end of the film. And then
then Stallone says to the kid, "He's looking at you, kid." And then he rides off into the sunset on his horse that was never introduced until this moment.
do 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 do.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this movie.
I love that soup corruption. Yeah. That was I love that. RKO, give us a job
in cinemas this summer.
Sylvester Stallone, Jake Lloyd.
Yeah.
Soup.
Christopher Walken.
The soup.
Yeah. We're gonna try and tackle Guns and Grapes now.
Yeah, we'll do that for our final roundup, for our final piece.
Yes.
All right, Guns and Grapes. So I'm actually thinking we don't do an action story. We just did an action story with the soup. Let's work out something a little more. Okay, grapes. What does that summon up for you? Ancient Rome.
Of course.
Yeah. So there. All right. Okay. So you've got like a scene begins.
Yep.
You got ancient Rome, 62 BC. Probably. I think that's about right. That's all. Okay. That's all in the caption. That's actually in the caption. You've got the ancient Roman emperor, Jim, and
Jim McCracken.
Jim McCracken, the great Roman emperor, and he's lying recumbent on his chaise lounge, and he's got a big load of grapes, and he's sort of dangling them in front of him, and he's saying, "Oh, I do grow weary of these imperial delights. If only there were more lands to conquer." And his advisor goes, well, actually, there is a bit of Britain. It's called Wales. You could probably, if only there was more bits to conquer. Well, you could go. There's like sort of sections of like maybe India. You could try if only. And they're like,
no, I wish for more.
The music swells. I want adventure. It's a musical now. It's I want adventure.
I want to sing.
I want to see the world of wonder. I want to know what it is to be alive. And he's doing this number, and his advisors, Fred, and Bernard,
And George.
Fred, Bernard, and George.
Yes.
They're sitting around
The most Roman of names.
Yes, and they're sitting around the well, all right, Fredicus, Bernicus, and Georgius. Yeah, so they're all sitting around the table. It's like, guys, the Emperor's gone doolally. We've got to work out some way to make him happy again. And they're like, well, I don't know, maybe we could like betray him, and
Don't make him happy.
we could betray him and take over Rome. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? And they're like, yeah, maybe. There's a lot of paperwork to do, though. And then at that point, there's like a spark of energy, a big, and there's all of a sudden, a man comes down, and he's like, "Stop! I'm a traveller from the future, and I'm here to avert a terrible crisis." And they're like, "What's that on your hip?" And he's like, "A gun." And Fredicus and Bernicus and Georgicus, they're dead. They're dead. They're at the film. And
it's too bad we spent most of our budget on the actors to play those three characters, because they're gone now. we spent most of our budget getting George Clooney, Colin
Leonardo
Firth.
DiCaprio,
Yeah.
and Robert Downey Jr. They're all dead now.
Yeah.
So they and so the time traveler, whose name has already escaped me, he goes to the Emperor.
I don't think you said his name.
That'll be a twist later on then. And so they're
his name is Georgicus the Fourth.
This is interesting. So he runs up to the Emperor, and the Emperor's just finished his musical number. And I'll let you take over from here.
So, the time traveler disguises himself as all three of the advisors.
Does he do like YMCA? Just like sticks two puppets on either side of him.
He walks in a Georgicus costume, with like some contraption that puppeteers some puppets of the other two behind him. Of course, the Emperor doesn't notice, and Georgicus the Fourth. Sorry, what was that?
Of course, no one knows. Of course, he didn't notice. He's singing now. He's gone completely bananas. It's the lead.
Yeah. So the time traveler, disguised as the three advisors, he, while the song number is happening, he puts something on the grapes, not like poison, because that's cliche, but something that makes the Emperor, like, I don't know, gives him superpowers or something.
LSD.
Yes. Yeah. Gives him a drug trip that makes him see the errors of his ways.
Of course, emperors don't break out into song.
Paul, I have some bad news for you. I don't think we've made Guns and Grapes. I think we've made a film set in Rome. About $10.
Well, I mean, I was going for the gun. I was going to use the gun.
Just the one gun.
All right, fine. Gun and grapes. And that's the moral of the story, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes the creative process just doesn't work.
That's what we've learned today.
Follow your dreams, follow your passions,
Yeah.
but for God's sake, don't just go off on a tangent about grapes and ancient Rome and LSD.
Don't be creative.
Oh, this has gotten off to a weird ending.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into this podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for tuning into this experience.
Sam, where can we find you?
My name is Sam Cyb of Sam Cyb Stories. That's SAMCYB. It's a YouTube channel, and it's my Twitter handle, and it's my website that I haven't actually finished yet. But
yeah, dude's got his.
It's up there. Yeah.
Dude's got his platform worked out. I mean, he's right on top of it. I've gone through so many bloody usernames. I've no clue what I'm doing. This guy's a professional. He knows what he's doing.
You're free to think that.
All right. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again, lovely viewers. Until then, don't listen to the advice that I literally just gave. Follow your dreams. Follow your beauty. Go ahead and fuse yourself with the magic hyper reality that exists beyond the realm of human thought, the imagination. Thank you, and I have no idea how to end this.
Don't eat paint, kids.
Don't eat paint. The end. Goodbye.